Bagramon is the strongest vinyl villain of the Digimon Cross War show. With incredible powers that can remove all tamers, it is supposed to be known as the greatest fear of all time in the digital world, alongside with Bagra Army of course. Or, unfortunately, some would actually call it BAD GRA ARMY. If you want to vote for future episodes just like this one, be sure to subscribe and keep a lookout on the community tab. This series is intended to critically analyze decks and archetypes that have a low play rate, including some of them that once used to be considered as the best deck during its prime. We'll take a look at what the cards do, its history, and talk about the issues of how it struggles to establish its win condition and identity in today's format, and also ways to improve it as well. The Bagra Army deck is purple base, and it first debuted in BT10 Cross Encounter. It also received quite a bit of amount of support throughout many other sets. Actually, it has quite a lot of different cards that sustain the entire archetype. The level 3s consist of Soundbirdmon, Chuchumon, and Chikurimon for draw power and search. There's level 4s that consist of wide range, and the main ones that you tend to see are the two different kinds of Damimons. One of them lets you play Yuu, which is the main tamer of the deck, and the other has Retaliation and Blocker as inherited. The promo Skonightmon is also another card that can help you play Yuu for free, and it also gives you security +1 with its inherited effect. Mad Leomon and Troopmon are the level 4s which have disruptive effects when your opponents add cards to their hand or plays a Digimon. Muso Nightmon is the only current level 5, but it de-digivolves the opponent's Digimon and gives you a bit of recursion with its on deletion effect. There is also a variety of level 6s when it comes to the Bagra Army Generals, consisting of Tactimon to go wide with blockers, Blastmon to go for rush and blitz to win games. There's also Lilithmon to grab additional resources back from the trash and slow down the opponent's turn. And of course, there is the one true King of Darkness that rule them all, Bagramon, which is the main boss card of the deck. It has the ability to either look at your opponent's hand to trash a card, or tuck a Digimon underneath another one if your opponent has 2 or more Digimon on the board. It also has a secondary effect that can trash the top card of your opponent's security stack whenever they Digivolve or use an effect that places Digivolution cards underneath a Digimon. All you have to do is trash one source from Bagramon in order to do so, and it's all turns. Darkness Bagramon is the final form of Bagramon. You can either Digicross with it with Dark Knightmon and Bagramon, and it has the on-play and when Digivolving effect deleting any one of your opponent's Digimon, and then you place up to 5 Digimon cards with Bagra Army traits from your trash to put it underneath this Digimon's Digivolution sources. It also has opponent's turn. When an opponent's Digimon Digivolves or attacks, by trashing 5 cards within its sources, you return all tamers on the board back to the owner's hand. Aside from Darkness Bagramon, there's also a couple other cards that utilizes a bit of the Digicross mechanic through Mad Leomon and Muso Nightmon. As for the rest of the Digimon, they don't have any Digicross mechanic, which might make you think at first that it doesn't seem consistent at all from design. But Yuu has a similar mechanic that allows you to do so. Yuu is the most important tamer and resource for the deck because it lets you draw cards and gain memory as you put sources underneath him. By having sources underneath Yuu, you can utilize his second effect to reduce the play cost of your Bagra Army top-end cards. Buzzing Fist is also an option card that helps you search and add more sources underneath your tamers, or you can even play Yuu for free when you hit it from security. Astro Snatcher is Bagramon's signature move, and its main effect lets you place up to 3 Digimon cards with Bagra Army traits from your trash underneath one of your Digimon or one of your tamers as its bottom Digivolution sources. Then, if you have a Digimon or tamer with Bagra Army trait in play, you get to place one of your opponent's Digimon under one of their other Digimon as its bottom Digivolution card. Effectively, the same thing as what Bagramon does. The playstyle of this deck is in the form of Disruption, which is fairly unique and uncommon. The goal of the early game control plan is to punish your opponents whenever they try to set up. This can be in the form of when they play a Digimon or whenever they try to add cards to their hand. You can either Digicross with Mad Leomon or Digivolve up the stack to have multiple sources underneath it. And you want to mainly make sure to have your level 3s and 4s inherited effects because they're able to gain memory during the opponent's turn once they're trashed. By synergizing with the opponent's turn effects of Mad Leomon and Troopmon, you're basically able to limit the amount of plays that they can make. At the same time, you want to make sure that you can gather as many sources under you as possible because the secondary game plan is to then hard play your level 6s and reduce them with Yuu. By playing your Blastmon, Tactimon, or Lilithmon, they're all your toolbox level 6s which help you adapt into different applications and gain various advantages. And of course, Bagramon is to further control by taking away your opponent's Digimon and security, which makes them lose value. Afterwards, the game plan is to deal damage bit by bit whenever you can to win the game slowly through the control methods. We can see that this archetype was designed to heavily counter against tamer-based decks, especially those that utilize the Digicross mechanics such as Shoutmon, Blue Flare, and Dark Knightmon. And I always find it really cool when the game designers incorporate lore alongside with the actual card game. We can see that the effects of Bagramon actually makes it a pretty good card by itself. As a matter of fact, we actually saw it being played back in BT11, mainly being splashed into some other decks like Mastermon and Secon. And this next fact actually might surprise you. Unlike all the other decks that I cover here on Why Nobly Plays, Bagra Army actually made it to the top during the 2024 Nationals format. And there could be several reasons behind this, as one of them could be a really good call against the meta during the time, alongside with taking advantage of player knowledge of not knowing how to play against it. Overall, the fact that it made it to the top really proves that the deck has potential. And if you feel that you're a Bagra Army expert yourself, then the next person to do that again could be you. But despite these unique instances, we can all agree that this deck has seen very little play even at a local level. With so many different cards within the archetype that support it, why is it not good? And this is where we'll start talking about the issues. One of the largest factors is not being able to see Yuu fast enough, with it being the only and most important tamer of the deck. Without that card or not being able to see it early enough, it really staggers the scaling potential. Even though if you establish Yuu early enough, there's still a second hurdle, and that is to add sources underneath it quickly. Players are often forced to make a decision whether to utilize these sources to play out the level 4s or to save them for later on, because once you utilize them once, they're basically gone in the trash. Darkness Bagramon's effect seems pretty good in theory because it can delete the opponent's Digimon and add all those sources back to give you a ton of memory gaining effects. You can reduce the play cost with Yuu underneath the stack, which basically infinitely scales, and even Digi-cross it alongside to further reduce the play cost of Darkness Bagramon. The idea is to have a lot of sources during the opponent's turn, and once they proceed to play, you can trash all of them and gain all the memory back passing their turn. But at the end of the day, it is still rather underwhelming when it comes to practice. The Digi-cross requirements can be sometimes questionable, even though they're akin to the lore, because Dark Knightmon and Bagramon don't synergize at all, except by having Musou Knightmon. The effects that disrupt during the opponent's turn is great, because it acts just like Mirage Galgamon from BT11. However, those effects require too many resources and setup which don't give enough return value. And I feel it needs to be stronger, but perhaps the game designers are too afraid to do that because it might potentially make it too overpowered. It is nice to see that there are decks out there designed to interact during the opponent's turn, but in a situation where it shuts them off from doing anything, wouldn't that be more considered as not interactive? These are some of the design challenges that I can see because you don't want to make it too strong and unfair. This could even be intentional from the very beginning. Aside from that, the archetype lacks early game removal and damage. Even with the addition of the promo Skull Knightmon, it just isn't enough. And if it's not super good at doing what it's supposed to do, then what is its win con? And here are some of my recommendations on how to improve it, because I strongly believe that Bagra Army has potential, especially when it comes to its unique disrupting effects that can be one of a kind. The first solution I have is to include some form or method for the deck to be able to play the level 4s with Digi-cross early, such as being in the first turn. That way the disruptive effects become more meaningful and it actually might help slow the game down. But most importantly, they don't necessarily require you in order to function either. And speaking of Yuu, as we identified earlier, the deck really heavily relies on it anyways, and here are some of the other ideas I have to focus on that pain point. Surely there should be more cards that can search and play out Yuu faster. A very good example is to have a card just like Terriermon from Double Typhoon, which has the effect to help you reduce the play cost of Yuu, aside from high rolling from the Damimon and Buzzing Fist in the first place. The archetype can also use a purple and black Dark Knightmon that actually synergizes with the deck core, similar to Musou Knightmon. And this should also allow the Dark Knightmon to Digivolve on top of a level 4 purple Digimon, because it can then also make it easier for you to Digivolve Bagramon on top of the level 5. Now I know this idea can be slightly against the lore because it's not supposed to happen that way, but this can also be a very nice segue to help improve the Dark Knightmon deck alongside with it by having the Digi-cross requirements anyways. Do you guys think Dark Knightmon needs to be part of this series? Let me know in the comments. BT16 also has a new Mad Leomon, which is nice to see, but unfortunately, I just don't think this card is going to be good enough just to single-handedly change the entire deck to make it good. But of course, we can certainly anticipate for additional support in BT19 since it is going to be based off the Cross Wars manga, and I'm excited to see what there is to come. So if you haven't seen the last episode with Bagra Army, then be sure to watch it right now. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for more new episodes of this series. As always, thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, wherever you are. See you next video, and this is AVAULT, signing